So now we want to draw the station line, which is in essence the frame line. We've been dealing with the dead flat frame. That's why all our numbers have come from the first column here. The first thing I want to draw is the floor sweep. That's the arc that's at the bottom of the station line or the frame, and that will have its center at the end of the rising. This isn't the rising line, but it determines the point on the rising line that we're going to use. But we'll use the end of this line here, that point there. Now the problem is, how long is the radius? And so we look it up in the chart, and it says that the length of the floor sweep above the rising is, well, see the rising line. I have no idea how you do that. So I went into steel, and reading in the text, evidently this is what you do. You use the point on the diagonal that is closest to the head of the floor timber. How do we find that? Well, we look up in steel, we find out that the floor timber was 21 feet long, and half of that is 10.5 feet. If you were to come out 10.5 feet from the middle line, you would have a line right about here. So this point here is the closest point we have to the head of the floor timber. Consequently, we're going to draw an arc. Again, we'll come in here and we'll put the center of it at the end of the line. We'll come here now and put the arc with a radius at that point. And then we're just going to draw it out here and just bring it up farther than we're going to need it, but we can trim it off later. So that's our floor sweep. Next, we put in the lower breadth sweep. Much easier to do. We use this as our center. We use the other end of the line for the radius, and now we draw in that sweep. It stops at the lower breadth line, so we can stop it right there. Right. Now what we need is we need a sweep or arc that will join these two lines in a fair way that won't have a glitch on it, a bump or a break. The literature says that you draw a reconciling sweep. It reconciles these two arcs to one another. This reconciling sweep has to be in tangent to these two arcs. The old literature says draw it to the back of the arc. Whenever you see that phrase, the back of the arc or the back of the circle, that just means tangent to the circle or tangent to the arc. And then it has to go through these points on the diagonals. So we use a tool that allows us to draw arcs that are tangent to entities. I choose this as one of my entities. I choose this as the other. Now what I'm going to do is use a point, and what happens then is that as I zoom in here, I'm going to use this this point here on the what is that, the fourth diagonal, I think. Snap it there, and then the arc itself will sweep from here, and I'm going to bring it up well past the breadth line. So now I have three arcs. I have the floor sweep, the lower breadth sweep, and the reconciling sweep. Come over here and I use my trim tool to trim it all up. So first I'm going to trim off this piece up here. That's why I made it longer, so it'd just be easier to find. And next I'm going to trim off the lower breadth sweep. Now well, I could have done that really. Trim off the floor sweep, and then trim off the reconciling sweep. I think I did that wrong. We'll try the trimming again. I want to trim this off. That's, oops. That back. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. No, that's reconciling sweep. I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. So that's the basic underbody of the frame. Now we need to get it over here to the keel. And again, we use our arcs tangent. So we want an arc that is tangent to the floor sweep. Here's why we left this curve. It needs to be tangent to this. Don't do that to me. Tangent to there. Then it also needs to be. So we're just trying to get a curve. Now obviously these are entirely different shapes depending on where I put this curve. It really shouldn't come, you just can't let the frame curl up. So I'm going to put it right about there. I believe in the loft this would have been done with a template of some kind. There we go. And I'm going to draw from there to there. If I trim it up, okay. Now you see that it comes in to this arc. Doesn't come into the point here. It doesn't come to the edge there. It comes into the arc. And that's why the station lines and the frame lines keep coming inside the side of the keel as you look closely at your Maritime Museum plans. That's a nice little arc, nice little station line. You notice we missed the diagonal point there. We missed it there. But 3 of them we actually used. Or 3 of them we actually hit. I'd say that's pretty good for government work. We're not off by more than about an inch on those other points. We go now to the upper breadth sweep. Again, we have it. We start at the upper breadth line, draw it up higher than we're going to need it. And now what we need is some kind of reconciling sweep coming down from the top timber point and faring into the back of the upper breadth sweep that is tangent to the sweep. So again, I use my tangent arc tool. I choose this to be an arc, and tell it I want to hit there, and then I just draw it out until it just looks nice to me. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to put it right there. And we'll draw it from that point down a little bit too far. Use our trimming tool in order to make everything look good. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the dead flat frame.